Alright, nigga, we gon' be alright. Huh? We gon' be alright. Nigga, we gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
And when I wake up, I recognize you looking at me for the pay cut. Bahamas, I be looking at you from the face down.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Movie on the Block Talk. Tonight's conversation is going to be quite intense, as we are in some intense times here in the city of Chicago, really all around the country, but specifically here in Chicago, following what has been a brutal and heartbreaking weekend here in Chicago. 2 weekends in a row, we've seen the city make its priorities startlingly clear to us. And each time it's left us on the opposite end of the law. And so I thank you for joining me this evening just to talk about that, to talk about just the impact that the law last week, whether it is a police involved shooting, whether it is looting and breaking and entering, whether it is peaceful protest. How do we in fact deal with the system that often protects, not often, but more than often protects property and protects those on the opposite end of that? And so thank you for joining. Please do share this out. Make sure that you are sharing with everybody in your network, everybody in your circle, everybody in your Facebook list. We're also live on YouTube, so you can share it there as well. But to help us kind of put that in perspective, I have with me none other than Shay T. Allen of Shay T. Allen and Associates, and I want to thank him for joining us. I'm going to bring him on in just a moment. But just to give us some perspective of what it is, what does justice look like in the middle of protests, in the middle of looting, in the middle of police shootings, in the middle of a consent decree that has not even been mandated, and we're 3 dates out of past 3 different deadlines. What does justice look like? What kind of justice can we look forward to? What kind of justice can we even demand or even believe that we can have? And so with that, I'm going to bring on Mr. Shay Allen. Hey, Shay.
Welcome. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
No complaints.
Oh, 1 second. I got some. That's a car driving past. My window is open. I love the song, but that's what we have to deal with in the middle of COVID and being at home and virtual. And I think this car is actually stopping on my street. So, but I think I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. So thank you for joining me on this Sunday evening. This intense weekend. How have you gotten a lot of calls because of this weekend's activities?
Not as of yet. Usually it takes a couple of days for things to kind of flesh out for people if they are being held to get a hold of their family members and things to get out to attorneys. So not as of today, but you never know what the week's going to hold.
Okay. And I think that for the most part, people have been released, but there are just a few more who are still locked away from the protest. Well, let's go back, Shay, to so much has happened. This summer has been quite eventful, unfortunately for us. The summer has seen various levels of protests. We've seen police shooting here in Chicago. We've seen the looting that happened last Sunday, and then obviously the protests from yesterday. So let's take all of those instances, and I want you to break it down to us in terms of the law and justice and how we can, in each of those situations, be protected within the law and within justice. So the first one is the conversation around the police involved shooting from last week. We know that the police has said that the 20-year-old young man, had a gun and fired the gun at officers.
Mm-hmm.
And that has pretty much been the actual story that has been put to public, and public has accepted it. But can we still, Shay, in any way demand that we see the body cam from that? Like, what is it that the public can demand so that we can seek justice fully?
Right. So what it's going to take is continual pressure on the powers that be, and in particular the mayor, to release body cameras,
Mhm.
to release those body cameras as soon as possible. A policy was put in place not too long after Laquan McDonald, where body cameras supposed to be released or can be released 48 hours after an incident. If that doesn't happen, then media, which they haven't done, which they might have done already, can make freedom of information requests to the city. And if they don't, and then the city has a certain amount of time to respond to that. And if the city doesn't respond properly, the city can be taken to court
Which
to
is what had to happen
be
with
forced.
Laquan, right?
What's that?
Which is what had to happen, which is the only way we saw the footage from Laquan, correct?
Right, right. That's the only reason the video footage was finally released in Laquan McDonald um, at all. So without the court's intervention, who knows if we would ever saw those videos? The city many times is reluctant to release videos because they don't want the general public to see what goes on, and they use the reason that there's a pending investigation usually, but rarely is there any if there is an investigation going on, the general public seeing the video footage, it's not going to affect the investigation.
Okay, so that's the police shooting that happened last weekend. So let's recap that. We can still ask for that footage. We should. We have a right to it. And our journalists, and which is unfortunate that so many Black-owned newspapers and media outlets, with FCC regulations that came all the way from 2011 until now, pretty much had shut down a lot of our independent media outlets. But for those who are still remaining, like the Tribe, like Chicago Defender, like Crusader, like Austin Weekly, like so many other different independent, Block Chicago. So many have the ability now, and you can actually do you can actually do a coalition letter to summons that Freedom of Information Act. So thank you, Shay. So moving on to the police in another instance. The consent decree says this, but then we're asking for this as well. How can the public who wants to see the conduct records of the police in Chicago? I think of one in particular, James Hunt. In 2018, James Hunt was caught on a Snapchat video, um,
Mm-hmm.
and they caught him saying that he loves to kill mother effers. And he actually said this to two Black teen boys. They caught him on Snapchat. And so now that they saw that the mayor is aware of it, it made it to national news, and the Root magazine newspaper caught it. Blavity, a whole bunch of different people caught it. I think even CNN ran this story about James Hunt. So we know that is an officer who is still on duty, right? It was supposed to be under investigation, but we never got, like we did yesterday, this big press conference that says this is absolutely, we won't tolerate officers doing this. This is what's happened to him now. These are the charges that he has, and anybody else that's caught doing this, this is what will happen to you. We never saw that for James Hunt. So how do people hold police accountable? How do we keep track of the records of police officers who are in our community, who are they could be or could be not involved in misconduct and excessive force or profiling, anything? Do we have a right, and can we demand access to their records?
Right. Yeah. This was supposed to be the entire purpose of the consent decree, or one of the reasons of the consent decree, is that the CPD was supposed to make public records, any disciplinary issues, all uses of force. They're supposed to give records whenever they fire a weapon, whenever they use a taser. These are all things that were included in the consent decree that they're supposed to report. There are people that monitor various law firms that have they bid, during the consent decree to be monitors of that.
For this program is brought to you by Rob.
Sorry.
That's okay. they're supposed to make sure that the letter of the consent decree was being upheld. So the monitors are coming to mind right now, who exactly they are, but just Google Chicago consent decree, all the information will come up. And each monitor has a website or email that the general public can reach out to because the monitor is supposed to be the link between the actual letter of the consent decree and what's occurring. So the general public should have access to those monitors, and those are the ones you really reach out to and get on top of in order to make sure that the letter of the consent decree. And also, again, a lot of it goes back to public pressure on elected officials. The mayor, she ran a progressive platform, saying that she wasn't going to tolerate the normal behavior from Chicago police officers. So she should also be demanding that that consent decree be upheld and that the monitors do their job. So public pressure always helps with that as well.
And that public pressure can be applied anywhere to the police or to our aldermen as well as the mayor, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna put a link to the consent decree in the comments because I think not just what's mandated and what's said, like the monitors and all the other deadlines, that the trainings and everything else. I just think that people should know what the summation was that the DOJ walked away with. The fact that overwhelmingly CPD was said to be they didn't have proper training. Overwhelmingly, more than 50, I think I want to say higher, but more than 50% of the time, their interactions with the public will result in harm to the public or to themselves. And so I just want people to understand what we're dealing with when we talk about the police. I think that Shay, unfortunately, so many of us, and he's okay. I mean, I really can't hear. We really can't hear the background, Shay, so it's fine.
What's up?
Um, um, it's unfortunate that people can't separate individual officers from the force and the system that is ingratiated. So we're not talking about the officer that's our cousin or the officer that's our neighbor or the officer who we grew up with. We're not talking about individual people. We're talking about a system in which they are a part. That is what the actual consent decree is talking about, the Chicago police as a whole, right?
Right.
So I just want to throw that out there to people because I think, especially now with the protest and with what we saw, is that people feel that they have to defend themselves. But we're not talking about individuals. We're talking about a whole system. So again, visit the consent decree so you can see for yourself. We have to be able to use this tool as an accountability tool. The same way that the mayor is enforcing things and has a whole plan, we have to be able to use this for our own. And I take that, Shay, into our next line of conversation, which when we start these protests, right? People are protesting the very system. They're protesting. Some are extreme with abolish police altogether. Some are saying defund police. Some are saying reallocate funds. Some are asking to have police removed from Chicago public school system. Others are asking for community policing. So people are protesting for various reasons, various agendas. But when they are protesting, Shay, what is it that they should walk out of? If today I decide that I want to go protest, what is the first thing I should do when I make that decision and walk out of my door?
Yeah. I guess the first thing you should do is make sure someone knows that you're going. Let someone else that knows your name, your date of birth, at the very least, and what general area you're going to be in. Let them know where you're going, because if you get arrested, you're going to need somebody and have someone's number memorized. Because if you get arrested, you're going to have to make a phone call, and someone needs to be available if they have to either get a hold of an attorney or get a hold of come get you. The other thing, practically, wear comfortable clothes. And I would always say, when you are protesting, try to stay with as many people as possible, because if you are, the main concern, in my opinion, when protesting is the police. So it's being arrested. So someone really needs to be present to uh, be there for if that happens. But one general thing for protesters as a whole, organizations, if you're going to protest, you should have, two, three, four, five attorneys that the organization is familiar with. You can either have them at the ready, so if people need assistance, or some people for larger protests, what they do is they have basically monitors, attorneys who will act as monitors, and they're I've done this before. They're walking in the protest as well. But what they have a pad, they have a pencil, they're observing, and of course they're there if anyone needs assistance. But mostly they're observing. So if someone does get arrested, or if they observe improper police behavior during the protest, they can document it.
So one thing I heard yesterday that was said is that they started to write the phone numbers and bail numbers on their arms and on their persons and marker, so that if they got arrested, that they will have it on their persons. Because are the police going to take their belongings once they are arrested?
Yeah, when you're arrested, all your items are inventory. In essence, anything you had on you, your pockets, or anything, your shoelace, anything, are taken, put in a plastic bag, and then put in storage. And you're supposed to get it back when you're released, or a family member can come pick those items up. So yeah, everything is going to be gone, including your cell phone.
So people should absolutely make sure that they are taking having those phone numbers memorized or either written down on a person. Here's a number that I always give to my
Oh,
son, my nephews. It's the First Defense Legal Aid. They will come right away to bail you
mhm.
out, no questions asked, no matter what time. Um, if you are in Cook County or Chicago, I believe only, like not outside of that vicinity. So
Uh,
um, yeah, that's a number that I just want people to have. Put it in your phone, and that's another thing, Shay. Phones. So we also know that last weekend, there was a standoff in Inglewood at 56 and Aberdeen, and one of the young men who was
mhm.
there recording, who they say actually got the initial police interaction with the young man that was shot. That he had it all on his camera. His phone was taken from him for up
Mhm.
to 3 hours, Shay. Is that legal?
Mhm. No, no. So you have the absolute and 100% right to record police officers in Illinois. Not surprisingly, just recently, it was a felony to video record police officers, and that law was just changed within the last 5 years or so. It was a shame that it was ever illegal. We know why it was a law, but literally it was a felony if you took out your phone and recorded police officers. That law is no longer in the books. So you can record. You can walk up and down the street and record police officers. Now, a person in the general public, you're supposed to have consent if you record audio or visually. Someone's supposed to have consent both ways for it to hold up in court. But for police, because of a member of their public duties, when they're performing their public duties, you can absolutely record them, no problem. What happens a lot though is police officers, because they often uh, don't want people recording their actions, they do, in fact, take cameras. I've seen take phones, break them, or just take them for indiscriminate amount of times and give them back when they feel like. But you have the absolute right to do that.
And when they take them, Shay, is there a way that they can scrub your phone or take things off of your phone? Like if there is video, they can delete it.
I can't hear you, Lakeisha.
Can you hear me now? No. Yes. Oh no. That's fine. Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Yeah, my internet jumps from one server to another. So I'm sorry
No,
about that.
that's okay.
Um, yeah, so can they erase what is on your phone? And if they can, how are you protected against that?
Well, I guess the first thing is a simple measure of having a password or passcode on your phone. A average police officer or human being for that matter won't be able to get into your phone without your password. And if for some reason an officer is being extra diabolical and is trying to use your Face ID, just close your eyes and it won't and it won't work. So that's the practical way to protect against it. Um, Legally, I tell people that there are things that officers do on the streets all the time that on the street, no matter how many laws you know or how many statutes you quote, that's not going to stop them from doing what they're going to do. You just have to take really good mental notes as soon as you can, write down everything that happened, names, times, places, and then when you go to court, have your attorney bring those issues back up into play.
And it's unfortunate. It really is. The word you use is really what we've seen, diabolical. Just the times that we're in, it's just it's just unprecedented times
Mm-hmm.
all around. And the unfortunate thing is that it's for some reason it's instead of a time when we should be knowing and realizing that we need this cohesiveness. For some reason, this is the time when things have just become polarized,
Mm-hmm.
and the police have seemed to be heartless in the midst of what we are experiencing in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with that, I'll move us on to what we saw last Sun after the shooting and after the standoff with the police and after them taking the young man's phone. Others all around the city that must have been the swell of just frustration, because I think most people had were able. I'm sorry, my dog is. Most people had just been able to see what happened on Facebook and had a reaction to it,
Mm-hmm.
regardless if they knew the person or if they were there. What most people saw was a standoff between the police and that there was an actual shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also saw that the police were walking down the street with these automatic weapons. Um,
Mm-hmm.
on a Sunday afternoon. And so that stoked that was the tipping point for a lot of people. Now, people may say that there are some provocateurs who are in the midst of it, who are egging these things on, which is probably true. But Shay, the frustration that people feel led them into the streets in a
Mm-hmm.
very coordinated way.
Mm-hmm.
People from all ranges and ages were
Mm-hmm.
found to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my understanding is that many of them, this was their first crime ever.
Mm-hmm.
Still in all, they committed felony crimes.
Mm-hmm.
What leg do they have to stand on in court?
Well, it's going to take creative legal defenses in order to properly defend anybody that's charged in any crime connected with this. It's going to take creativity because first, unfortunately, I think that most judges and probably and/or jurors, if they're presented with these cases, are already going to have their mind made up that someone is guilty. So uh, there's going to be um, it's going to have to take some creativity of some affirmative defenses that already exist, of course, duress, coercion.
Mhm.
And then it's going to be a matter of how well these cases are, how well the city is going to be able to, excuse me, the prosecutor is going to be able to prove these cases. Because it seems like to me the the sentiment of the powers that be in the city are just looking for blood on these cases. So I think what that's going to cause is undue pressure on the prosecutors to arrest and prosecute these people. And when that happens, that means there's going to be lack of evidence all over the place. So it's going to take attorneys who dissect these cases, look at them closely, and see what the prosecutors can actually prove, as opposed to with these felonies.
Well, Shay, everybody won't have an attorney such as yourself. So people may be at the whim of overwhelmed public defenders and an overwhelmed system that's already overwhelmed. What can the public do in terms of relationship with judges, voicing our, because there seems to be an orchestrated cry and plea for that's coming for people to be aggressively prosecuted and be aggressively, like there's this machine of voices that is launched. So how can the people who are on the opposite side of that, who don't want this to be aggressively prosecuted, we're not saying that they should get away with it, but we don't want the situation that's happened in Louisiana where, you steal hedge clippers or you attempt to steal hedge clippers and you spend life in prison. We're not trying to have heavy-handed sentencing. So how do you let the judge know or let the judges know? Obviously, we don't know what judges will get what cases, but is there an association or what can we do?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that people who are of the opinion, like myself, that the media has really shaped this in a way to get people in such a frenzy, and quite frankly, to me, it's very, very disheartening. And I, the sect of people that have caused me the most disdain or the most pain, I guess, are upper middle class or middle class or maybe even rich Black people who have been out here and basically jumping all over what happened. They are all over it. Oh, it is I'm disgusted. It is a shame. My city. And what you're doing is you're playing right into the media's hand. I don't care if you live in these neighborhoods or not, that where these things occur. But what you're doing is you're giving the powers that be what they want. They want to paint this as just horrible, horrible incident. But the main problem is the root issues that cause. Imagine that someone feels as though they have such a lack of hope, such a lack of repercussions. They feel as though they have no other option but to get downtown and go just steal these items that they would never, ever, ever, ever obtain legally. But they are told every day you should have these things. These things validate you and make you apparently worth caring about. But you can't get them.
Nope.
So the only way that you can get these items and express your frustration about what's going on in your own neighborhoods is to go and steal the item. But the people, a lot of Black folk they skip right over all of that and just go straight to, oh, it's just horrible. They're not representing us well. I mean, those bridges up and the show of force that the mayor has shown to protect Gucci, and these other stores. I mean, it's disgusting to me. And it shows how quick public officials can react when they want to. But the issues that have been going on in South and West Sides have been going on since the 60s and the 70s, and nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. Nobody wants to rectify these issues. So the first way I think this is going to be dealt with, if people, a lot of people I know, I've had this discussion with, who are just they're so upset. I'm fortunate enough to have people I know and myself who, grew up in Roseland or Princeton Park, and we were able to have a lot of good opportunities, and we've had been blessed in life, and now they're getting old and they feel like, well, if I did it, someone else should do it. That is the worst. It is the worst thing that anyone can say or argue or feel, and I hate to hear it. I hate to hear it. from anyone, because you telling someone to pull their step off from their bootstraps when they never had food to begin with.
Mhm.
So it's a horrible way to look at it. So first we need to be united within our own group. For some reason, Black folk, they always want to say we're not a monolith. We have so many different opinions. Well, we don't need every. I don't. It's hard to generalize, but a lot of other groups of people are able to stick together in public and argue behind closed doors. Okay, but in public, they are united, but not us. We will criticize each other in a second, in a heartbeat, no matter what it is. And instead of dealing, it's fine to say no one wants anyone to do anything illegal. That's obvious. That's obvious.
We are actually more conservative than any other race of people. We have very low tolerance for crime that harms people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's very true. And when I tell people that, often other non-Black people, it seems to surprise them. But yeah, most Black folk are very, very conservative in many of their views. So I think it causes an issue. But the next thing is that
I think I lost you, Shay. Think I lost Shay, but his points are absolutely on point. You back? I can see you, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with the camera. But
you can go ahead.
Yeah, but so we also need to. I think we really need to, especially when you have a first-term mayor, hold her feet to the fire, because another election is coming up really soon, and I think that I don't know. I think that really need to make it known to her that those bridges up, I think, are going to be a symbol of her tenure. I think it's just a graphic symbol of the segregation in the city.
And I'm shocked that someone has not advised her of that. I'm shocked that it hasn't become evident to her. But she digs in her heels. She came out this morning and said she upholds everything that the police department did. I don't understand those who are out in the streets the most. Those are young people who are voting age people or will be voting age people. I don't know what she believes that will happen within the next 2 years that will solidify her election. She's already been in office now. This is year 2. I don't know if she understands what those ramifications will be for her election. But what I want our people to walk away with, like you said, is I want people to understand how public perception shapes law and how we have the power to shift this narrative so that it protects us, so that we're not ushering in crime bills like in the 90s. So we're not ushering in things that will cause us to have the 3 strikes law. Because once we fall to this public perception and we allow this media narrative to take over, then people will use it for political leverage. People will use it, to run on as platforms to run on. I came up with this law or whatever. So I'm glad that you made that point about the perception. There you are. You're back.
Okay.
This perception, because I like you, I'm shocked. I actually, Shay, you are probably seeing me well, at least in a neutral place since last Sunday. The overwhelming emotional strain and stress when you are concerned about your people and you're concerned about their well-being, to see them become so gullible to public media. I mean, we have to question, how is it that the police department can get on television first thing in the morning and shape this story and the media will not in any way have a balance. Normally, you have two different perspectives, but when
Hmm.
you can have when you can co-opt the media, that should tell us something. And I'm reading Cast now by Isabel Wilkerson, but you can look at any movement, you can look at anything that's happened historically and see that the very same thing co-opt the media. What happens when they do different African places? The first thing they co-opt is the communication.
Hmm.
So why can't we? I don't understand why we allow this story to go on. I also wanted to just touch on your. I wanted to get your feedback about the looting, and let's go back to the desperation that people must feel. Um,
Hmm.
and we can talk about this in terms of law. Um, it was last year, I think it was spring break of last year, of last April, when young black people, about 500 young black people, started to trend downtown, and they all went downtown over
Hmm.
spring break. And the language used in the media that they descended on downtown, that they it was all language that animals do,
Hmm.
uh, they descended upon it. What do bees do? I forgot. All the words were like
Swarm. Yeah.
swarm. Like, what is? How do you use that word? Those words for young people? My question that I want to ask people is, do you not see that on no other day? You go down to Michigan Avenue on any other day, you don't see large uh, crowds of black people.
Hmm.
That the things that they showed us in the looting videos is probably the most that you've seen any black people down on Michigan Avenue. So should that tell us something?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It tells us that Chicago, is the tale of two cities. It's always been that way. When I drive down Lakeshore Drive,
Hmm.
and once it passed Roosevelt and you start going north,
Hmm.
it's like you're on another planet. I mean, the what you start seeing,
Hmm.
the way, even parks are maintained, the way buildings look, the way roads look, it's a completely different story. Chicago is that way, and then it's that you aren't supposed to see black people in certain areas, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
When I'm watching these news reports and people in River North, oh my goodness, crime. This neighborhood is, these things are happening. Well, crime can happen anywhere.
Yes.
When you live in a city or even in suburbs, crime can occur at any point in time, and you should not expect. And it just shows a different mindset. They expect no crime to happen ever.
Hmm.
For us, apparently it's just run of the mill. That's normal. Should be used to it,
Hmm.
and it's just crime is just a part of life. So it's just a completely different mindset. But the fact that uh, people would get upset just by young people coming downtown. And there's some people who've grown up in Chicago who honestly they never been downtown, and they don't live far from it. They can live in Inglewood or South Shore or something. They just never been downtown because, in essence, they're not welcome. And it's a shame. It's a travesty because these are the people who, without all the people in all the neighborhoods in Chicago, we wouldn't have these large businesses in Chicago. We wouldn't have these large skyscrapers. We wouldn't have. It's all these people are all paying their taxes. These people are working hard, and their parents are working hard. And their children should be able to go where they want to, just like anybody else, any other group of kids. And it's unfortunate that that's what you see when you see a group of black kids is you just see it some kind of danger. I hate to hear it.
And I hate to hear it. It's almost. I mean, we're good to be essential workers. We can, as long as we're serving and providing luxury and leisure for others, then we're okay. But as soon as it's to partake in any of the leisure and any of the luxury, then all of a sudden the bridges go up. Um, it's amazing, as you said, with the work that I do with my girls and girls like me. We have a program that's called Divas in the City. And Shay, many have never been to the Riverwalk. They've never
Mhm.
walked on the river. They didn't even know that Wacker down on Wacker even exists.
Mhm.
I remember years ago interviewing Eric Monty, who was the creator for Cooley High from Cabrini Green, and I was asking him, like, I didn't know at the time that Cabrini Green set so close to downtown. And I asked him about it. He said no, they never would go downtown, even though it was right there. Children from Ida B. Wells. I grew up in Bronzeville. My peers never went downtown. And it's something we've been conditioned to do. So like you said, then it becomes okay for us to then demonize our own people because we feel even out of place or not good enough. Shay, I want to go back to justice and the law. How do these young people that have been locked up yesterday, the narrative, the videos that the police are showing are quite different than the videos from protesters who were there. Which videos in court will stand up?
So the key is going to be all the videos from the protesters. Hopefully these videos will get to the right places, and that means getting to the attorneys of these people. So what's going to have to happen is the names that are released in the media of the people being arrested. We're going to have to court dates are public, so you can look up a court date at the clerk's office or call the Dorothy Brown's office to find out. All you need is someone's name, really. And if it's a common name, you may need a date of birth. But if you have a helpful clerk, they can still kind of look it up for you. And you can find out anyone's court date. It's going to be a matter of finding out a court date, maybe sending groups of people to the court dates. And then even during COVID, the criminal courts closed, but a lot of mostly all courts should still be on YouTube. So they're still open to the public. So it's a matter of getting a hold of these people's attorneys and getting the right videos out, because if the video is to the person's attorney, that video can be admitted just like any other video. All it would take is someone who was there. It could be the person charged with the crime. All they have to be able to do is identify where it came from and what's going on, and that would make it be able to be admitted, so it can hold just as good as any other video.
Shay, there's a term that I wanted to, we talked about this earlier. I wanted you to tell me what that means and how the how public can address it. What's diversion mean?
Oh, so diversion programs are this. So I get arrested for a crime, and there are different programs in the state and offered by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office where, you can say, well, do 120 hours community service, and then you come back, the charges are dismissed. And with the charges are dismissed, that means that I can, immediately expunge that from my record. There are different other types of diversion programs where you may have to do community service in a certain place, or you may have to take, alcohol class where you learn about the dangers of alcohol or drugs or something to that effect. But there are different programs that are available to people who are arrested of crimes. In particular, it should be made available to someone that has no criminal history, or someone that even has minor criminal history and deserves a second chance.
Shay, I'm read some names to you that I'm not. You kind of tell me what their role is. Colleen Sheehan.
Colleen Sheehan.
Judge Colleen Sheehan. She said it says the court's overseer.
Colleen Sheehan. That name's not ringing a bell.
Okay. Who is the chief of the Circuit Court of Cook County?
Oh, that's what is his name? That is Tim Evans.
Tim Evans. Okay. Yeah. So there's a program that started. This is the wrong one. I know it just opened. It was a restorative justice court. Here it is. So
yes, I've heard about this. It's brand new. So
yes.
Yeah.
So what are you familiar with it? What does it look like? What could it possibly could we as a public reach out to the Chief Justice and say, look, this is where we want these cases tried, and this is how we don't want looting cases in criminal court. We want it in the restorative justice court.
So Tim Evans is over all the judges in Cook County, and then Leroy Martin is a judge that's overall the judges at 26th Street and criminal courts. So if I would assume that most of those, if not all those cases, either go there or go up to city courtrooms up in Skokie. But I think most of them end up at 26th Street. So it would be Leroy Martin who would be the presiding judge there. But I think it's a matter of reaching out to the state's attorney's office. And the state's attorney's office, Kim Foxx done a pretty good job of, she's opened up basically branch offices, and I think there's one on the south side, there's one on the west side, that's supposed to be basically liaisons between the community and her office. So if you just kind of search Cook County State's Attorney's Office Community Outreach Community Office, their addresses will pop up and information. You need to reach out to them or reach out to Kim Foxx's office to express that sentiment, because I think she's getting a lot of undue pressure, from the mayor and this guy who's the chief of police that just came to town, who has no idea what's going on.
He's in over his head, and he's going to be sent packing very soon. And that's unfortunate for him, because he had a chance to really do a good thing in Chicago. We could have just held his hand and took him, but he wants to be the cowboy. He thinks he's in Dallas. Kim Foxx, she does have undue pressure on her. She does have, they will try to make her the fall guy. I'm so glad that she's a sharp sister that was able to come back on her heels and say, don't blame me for prosecutions because you don't have charges. And when you charge, then I can prosecute. So I'm glad she was able to correct them. But now they are pushing for charges. So here's what I want to know, Shay. Should the public, if the public is of the mind that you shouldn't spend life in prison and your life should not be over for a pair of shoes or a Gucci bag, if that's your belief, is it helpful that we have petitions with thousands of signatures? Can that be used to say against the various people that are, because unfortunately there's so many trolls online who have these opinions about what should happen. Most of them are not Cook County residents. So if we can prove that the actual residents of Cook County are adamantly against these felony charges and these charges to these things that will have these huge sentences, do you think that petitions will be helpful?
I think petitions will be helpful, and I think organized and staggered almost communication with state attorney office will work too. What I mean communication is constantly reaching out to whoever the prosecutor is on the cases or the division. A lot of times it's the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So if people are constantly reaching out to the prosecutor saying this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want, members of the community constantly, and a petition of course I think those kind of things would definitely make a difference in regards to what they want to do, because when everything is said and done, state attorney's office is led by an elected official, who I might add in my 15 years in criminal law, she's the most progressive state attorney I've ever seen. So I don't care what the mayor says or what anyone else says. We're not gonna get a better state's attorney.
Well, progressive is a bad word these days. That's exactly what they don't want. And I don't know if the mayor calls herself progressive, but she's anything but. And whenever I see criticisms of Kim, is that she's too progressive and she's left. She's on the left and she's too lenient with criminals. How does the public not protect her per se, but protect this direction that we're going into? This is what we want. This is just the beginning of what we want, really, right? How do we protect that? How do we protect that movement?
All right. Well, part of progressive is progress. So to me, I think progressive people should strive to want to be called a progressive, because you want to move forward. Anyone that talks about being tough on crime, that's the same mantra that Nixon started however how many years ago. You see what happened to him. But we've been doing it wrong for 50, 60 years. Well, even before that. But it is clear, it is painfully clear that more arrests, stricter sentences, more prison time does not work. We've been doing that for years and years, and it doesn't work. I don't know how else to say it. The numbers support this fact. The recidivist rates support the fact. The crime rates, crime has, show me a place where crime is decreased because oh, we're giving them tougher sentences. Most of the time, unfortunately, people that are committing different crimes, they feel they have no other choice. Or even if you're going the other route, we say, well, it's just a bad person. That person is not thinking about the sentence before they commit the crime. I guarantee you, from my dealings in the system, no one is thinking, oh, you know what, this is 6 to 30, and this one's 3 to 7. Let me do this one instead. No, people just commit the crime and hope they aren't caught. So the sentence and throwing people away is just not. It is not the answer. So we need progress. We need somebody who's going to try something different. Because if we don't try something different, it's only going to get worse, and then we just end up going backwards. So I don't think it should be a bad word connected to Kim. I think she has a lot of courage, and you have to try a different tactic.
And for those who are always, who are bemoaning the word progressive, they always want to talk about our tax dollars. Well, for the case of the guy in Louisiana with the hedge clippers, Mr. Bryant, the state paid over $500,000 to house him for the last 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
We are spending tax dollars to house, even when they're arrested overnight. We're still having, once they're extradited to the county, that's a whole different. Now we've taken from the city taxes to the county taxes,
Mm-hmm.
so we're paying double to house criminals that have probably stolen maybe a $300 item or even a $1,500 item, but their stay in the system will cost us much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really just something where we just need fresh ideas, and we need to do them and try them, and don't just let people talk about being progressive and not doing anything. That's what I say, Kim. She's done things differently.
Mm-hmm.
When I say Kim, and Madam State's Attorney, she's doing things differently than most of our predecessors. She just come in and say, "I'm just going to arrest everybody, throw away the key." It's not feasible. Crime, there's a reason that I think a fourth of any person incarcerated in the world is in the United States. We have a fourth of the world's incarceration, and we're not a fourth of the population of the world at all. But we have so many people incarcerated, and it's not working.
And we have the most crime.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shay, how do people? People will obviously need a lot of representation, and thankfully, people's hearts are tender at this time. So people are willing to help take care of some legal fees for people at this time. So, if people are in need of representation, how do they contact you? I put your website is scrolling, but can you give like a phone number or email where people can reach out to you?
Sure. My phone number is 708-960-0113, and then my email is sallen at attorney Shay SHAY T Allen ALLEN.com. So that's sallen at attorney Shay T Allen.com. I'm always available and willing to help.
So I'm going to put that's on there scrolling now. Please reach out to Shay for any representation that you need, or just any. Shay, you also do consulting, right? If someone just needs to need some of your time just to steer them in the right direction.
Absolutely. My consults are for the most part free.
Mhm.
So, if you have questions or concerns, give me a call, and I'll see if I can lead you in the right direction.
And take the number down as Shay said. This is important to have a number, and organizations should also have these numbers and a list of numbers that they can use. Shay, I will ensure that I continue to get the word out about the things you said about us, making sure that we're communicating with State's Attorney Kim Fox to let her know how we feel and what we want to have happen with those who are arrested, not what the mayor wants. We will also write letters to uh, um, Chief Judge Tim Evans as well. Because even if these cases get to him and they have these charges, we definitely want the judges to use their discretion when they can. And if he can steer some of those cases into the restorative courts, that would be wonderful. But again,
Absolutely.
we have to make sure that we're vocalizing that because I think that other communities absolutely. I mean, it could just be the local McDonald's if they don't like the Coke, the ice in the Coke, then they're gonna write letters and reach out and make sure there's something done. So we have to stay vigilant and communicate, as you said. The other thing is to control the narrative and to make sure that those videos. Some people were saying, Shay, this is the last thing too. Some people were saying that they didn't want to show the videos in public. They were going to pull them down off of Twitter and things like that because they didn't want it to be used against the protesters. So even if they don't show it publicly, they should put it in a place where it can be shared with attorneys. Correct?
Absolutely. If you don't want to share it publicly, you just reach out to an attorney to see if they can get you in contact. If you can't figure out how to get in contact with a particular person's attorney, because sometimes it can be difficult to figure out, even though that's general as public knowledge as well. Just when you look up a case, it'll show you who the attorney is too. But if you can't, reach out to me or another attorney. We can help you figure it out because I'm sure they would appreciate you getting that information to them.
Well, I want to thank you for spending this hour with me, Shay. Hopefully, justice prevails. And when I say justice, not just locking people up, but hopefully equity is replaced by these punitive crimes. Hopefully, things that drive people to devastation to risk it all for a $1,500 purse, that people will be willing to just throw it all away. We have to know that that's driven by some kind of desperation, some kind of
Absolutely.
hopelessness.
Yeah.
You know, I said you never know how many times people contemplate a crime. You know,
Hmm.
you will be surprised how many people have contemplated crimes in the last 5 months
Hmm.
of all
Yeah.
kinds. You know,
Hmm.
and when you are at that point where you never have seen an opportunity, it just looks. If you could just, it's like playing the lottery. You may the chance that you could get away with it
Hmm.
will allow you to move forward with it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Thank you again. And
Absolutely.
left your information there, everybody. That's attorney Shay T. Allen. All right. That's it. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
All
You
right.
too. Bye bye.